All right, so this was kind of a fun one. Um, this is just a clip I saw on Instagram, and I thought it just made me laugh, and I thought I would show it to you guys because it's a goalie. This is a very common experience this time of year where uh, teams are playing with a mishmash of teammates, um, and then um, and then what ends up happening is eh, these games aren't they're not meaningful, right? Uh, they shouldn't be meaningful. Let's put it that way. They should be learning experiences where kids can try stuff. Shooters can try stuff. Goalies can try stuff. And one of the things that I loved from this clip was this idea of a goal, of a goalie. When a goalie is in the crease and the ball is loose, I no longer look at my goalie like a goalie. I look at them like they're a midi in the crease. And this is true for the boys and the girls. All right. And I want you to understand that. I want to, because I see so many missed opportunities for goalies to learn this time of year. I've got a couple Lacrosse Goalie University members, this time of year right now, and they're, where they live, like they're nervous of what teams they're playing on. They're trying to impress, like, the coach of this club team is also their high school varsity coach, and they've been asked to play for this team. And so they want to do real well, and the coaches never give the goalie or anybody else that matter the green light to experiment. Because now is the time of year to dabble and experiment and try things, and this clip was like that. So I can't remember where this clip was from. I don't even think that it was in the caption. The goalie right there is like, look in the back, gets a loose ball, now it starts leaving the cage, and nobody's hitting each other. There's nobody's hitting each other here. And this goalie comes up with a loose ball, and he's heading downfield, and it's a tiny field. Like, I doubt this field is like, half the length of a real lacrosse net. He does a behind the back pass. It gets picked, dropped. He picks it up, underhand score, top shelf goalie. Right, runs back now. And so in this indoor type situation, it's quick restart. Just restart with the goalie, quick outlet passes, and the goalie who just ran downfield and took the shot is now backtracking into the cage. Right, this shooter gets the ball from about 10 yards and I think he saves it. I don't know if he saves it or if it goes over the net. Doesn't really matter to me. But the idea here is that there's the ball, and I think he hooks it, or maybe the goalie makes a save. I can't really tell. Anyway, when you think about this type of situation in a game, what happens? Well, what usually happens is the goalie leaves the crease and everybody's sphincter puckers up. And the most vocal person is usually a mom on the sideline yelling, "Get back in the cage!" Right? Her inside fear becomes her outside voice, and there's usually more than one. And so what happens? The goalie then is taught that leaving the cage is a bad idea, and that's not true. That's not true. So that's why when the ball is loose, I look at my goalie like a midfielder stuck in the cage. Right? And when they're stuck in the cage like that, if you treat them like you would treat a midfielder, this is not a problem. And so the idea here is that goalie, if you look at them like a midfielder, let's say you look at them like a midfielder with bad stick skills, right? Like, let's say you look at that, right? And then you're like, oh, what would I want to have happen in that situation? Well, I want Kevin or Karen to 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 pick up that ball as best they can, and then go downfield, draw, and then dump to the open man. If they can do that, right? If they can just do that, then we're good. But what I love about this clip is just that, all right, this gives a goalie time to try something. And this goalie obviously has really good stick skills, or good enough, right? And that's what we want for every goalie to develop. And some people watching this will have goalies where they don't have great sticks. So they've gone in the cage because they like lacrosse, but they don't have great stick skills. The problem is that they have to eventually develop stick skills, but then they're going to try to do it with a goalie stick, which is going to delay their stick skills, right? Their development. So I want my goalies, off the field, or even in practice, to be using a short stick, right? To be learning how to play. So, and my girls too, like, I'll tell my girls, like, all right, listen, I want you to be doing like, line drills or whatever drills the coaches have you doing, but I want you to do it with, for the girls, it'll be a boy's stick because it has a pocket in it. But that way they're going to develop the ability to cradle and have some stick skills and go downfield, right? And I get it. Even the girls, I get it. The girls can't score, yada yada, blah blah blah, whatever. But I still want them to develop this sort of creativity. And so this is great, And the other thing too is that the goalie here getting scored on, this is not an uncommon occurrence. Like, I mean, it's uncommon, but sometimes having your goalie getting shot on by a long pole, or a goalie, another goalie is worthwhile because this goalie, I can guarantee you, when the goalie with the ball comes down the field, the goalie in this cage is going like, where the hell is this ball going to go? An underhand behind the an underhand scoop backhanded, like, be able to read that, you got to have practiced it a few times. And for those of us that know that, when this goalie pulls their, I'll just show you this if I can. um, the goalie with the ball here, the in the yellow helmet, picks the ball, like when the ball is here in the stick, that's not much of a wind up. So I know that he's most likely going to have to hook it and it's going to go high. Whereas if he is here and that stick is further this way, if I can show you this with my whiteboard, if the stick is further back this way, then that shot most likely is going to go low, right? But that only happens if you know if you yourself as a goalie have left the cage, if you've tried to make some passes like this, you understand that because this goalie who's in getting scored on here, you know, it's this portion of the shot where you know that the ball is going high, right? And so for this goalie to drop to their knees and put the stick there, it's a misread. It's a lack of goalie shooter knowledge on the goalie who's in the cage here, right? So again, this is a rare occurrence. I get it. It's uncommon, but it happens. And the rules apply with a goalie stick as would with a short stick, in terms of reading that stick. So the idea here is, there's a lot of benefits happening here with both this goalie who's in the yellow helmet who's left the cage and it has run it downfield. And also, you've heard me say this before, everything's possible with progression. So this is a fantastic opportunity for this goalie to leave the cage in a practice where nobody's really hitting anybody, right? Nobody's really hitting anybody. And then he ends up getting back in the cage and he's able to make the save. He's able to make the save. No harm, no foul, right? So I want your goalies in practice to have these opportunities to leave the cage because what it does is it not only helps them in a situation like this as a goalie leaving the cage, whatever, but it also, when a goalie is able to leave the cage and dodge a kid or two, uh, it creates so much confidence in them, especially on the clears. So when it comes to clearing, one of my Lacrosse Goal University members, we've been doing calls every week, and what's really fascinating is I get to see video of them playing, in a team, in a team environment clearing, and this is a goalie that hasn't had enough of these experiences where in practice they leave the cage and they can learn how to make a face dodge or look off a player, like look right, pass left, or even just like whatever. But so, and what happens in most practices, and I think most of you can relate to this, goalie gets in the cage and they're there to take shots. And then when they make a save, a lot of times practices get blown dead there. There's no outlet pass option for a goalie. There's not even enough time for a goalie to fish the ball out of the net and make an outlet pass to that player that just came down and shot on them. Now, this takes a little bit of creativity from a coaching perspective, but the idea is that if your goalie's not getting that, I encourage you to have a relationship with your coach enough to go like, hey, listen, I listen to this guy online every Wednesday, and he talks a lot about just giving the goalie the extra 3, 4, 5 seconds it takes to outlet a pass, or use the 4 seconds in the crease, or putting them in a shooting drill as an offensive player. Right, that makes a tremendous it makes tremendous improvements on a goalie's development. Hey there, David Ammenhauser. I see you. Congrats. That clip of your goalie this week was fantastic. Right. For those of you guys in Lacrosse Goalie University, or sorry, in the Creating Lacrosse Goalie of the Future, um, David posted a video of his son this week, and you should check it out. Okay. So good to see you, David. Congrats to your goalie. That's awesome. All right. So does that make sense? Like for most of you listening to me right now, if you're on Facebook and you can, does your goalie have chances to leave the cage like this in practice, or does the coach kind of stifle it and say, "Don't no go," don't go, or are they just limited to just taking shots? Like, if that's the case for your goalie, just leave a comment and leave a comment, and we'll if I get to it now or I'll get to the next segment, we can. But it's just I feel so strongly about this that but this is crazy because as much as I love a goalie goal, as much as I love goalies going full field, I do think that when you look at the pro levels of lacrosse or the collegiate level of lacrosse, we're not seeing goalies leaving the cage that much. And so that's where I'm like, okay, if we're not leaving the cage that much, then the idea is I think that we, to get that next stage of development for goalies, we need to pad them up and have them learn how to take shots, more shots with their body. David, okay, comment here. The lack of outlet passing and clearing in practice drives me mad. There's really is not a good way to practice that on your own that simulates pressure from an attackman and forcing decision making. Yeah, that's exactly right. And then people wonder why coaches get frustrated when the goalie messes up, or a major problem I see with all my goalies is defenses not really understanding how to clear, like to the degree that I want them to know how to clear. Like I want teams to clear and be offensive threats. Like I want your goalie to make a save, boys or girls, men or women, and I want the opposing coach to go, shit, it's coming back down our throat. That's what I want out of that. That to me is the best level of lacrosse goaltending. When your goalie makes a save, they're able to just pick apart that team. You get a couple good, offensive minded midfielders, and defensive midfielders, and transition goes huge. Um, Comment here. This is can go, but can go, but it seems to come with confidence from the goalie as well. Can go, but it seems to come with confidence from the goalie as well. Yeah, but if you don't get enough pot, so listen, um, it's confidence comes from past successful events. Courage is what your goalie has when they go into a situation when they're not confident, right? Confidence feels good, courage doesn't feel good, right? So the idea there is that when your goalie goes into um, it's like in football where a quarterback, they have a play and the quarterback has reads. They have option one, option two, option three. But when a quarterback has to scramble, that's like the last resort, right? That's the last resort. And so, when you watch a team with a goalie or with a quarterback who has to scramble all the time, but they're not physically capable to, it's a mess, right? But that's where a lot of goalies are left out to dry. And that all comes back down to the coaching and practice where the coach doesn't spend that 4, 5, 6 extra seconds per rep to allow the defense to clear, the girls to get wide, the boys to get wide, and the goalie to actually make a really good pass and draw and dump, right? And so that's really, really important. Okay. Thankfully at our club, whoops, thankfully at our club, they encourage leaving the crease when needed. She loves getting out there. Yeah, that's awesome. And that's going to pay massive dividends. It also pays massive dividends in the cage. All right. It pays massive dividends in the cage too. Okay. Really important. Okay. Um, so, um, Another question should be, my 27 girls has clearing built into the shooting drills, usually 4-on-3, and the coach, lots of comments here. This is great. And the, sorry, and the she loves getting out there. Okay, hold on. My 27 Girls has clearing built into the shooting drills, usually 4-on-3, and the coaches teach the D what to do on clears. Excellent. That's going to pay massive dividends. Brendan Cullinan, who just births his wife, like births goalies. Hold on a second. It should look like the Showtime Lakers or a Tom Brady third and long, not a flock of birds flying to and fro, back and forth from one side to the other. Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. Drives me crazy. There needs to be a system there. Okay, and that's true for the girls and the boys, but the girls are notoriously bad at that. The coaching just stops for the girls. So this is my take on a lot of girls teams, is that the drop off and stick skills amongst the team is, and this is, it's kind of all relative, but it's really, I think the perception is the same. Every team has, like, a handful of girls that are really good, and then even if you're like, if the bottom third of your team has decent stick skills, the perception is like those girls are horrible. And then what ends up happening is those girls don't get better because they don't see enough reps either on clears, right? So I just believe coaches just don't want to coach it. They don't want to put in the time, and then they leave it up on their goalie to figure something out. And then you're basically putting your goalie into a situation that's more complicated than a professional quarterback. All right, where everybody is paid millions of dollars and they know what the hell they're doing. Okay, maybe not millions of dollars. I get it. Yeah, keep the comments. Okay. So also in a summer game, why can't I see these? Oh, there we go. Hmm. Oh, that's why I can't see them. All right. So, also in a summer game, Bradley, I see you, buddy. Okay. Also in a summer game, she had no outlet, so took off upfield, outrunning the middies, and finally realized around the opponent's restraining line that she could not score. Wants to change the rule. I'm with you, Bradley. I'm with you. I think if we change that rule in the girls' game, it would dramatically change the game, for the better. I really do. I really do. And so, and that's, a lot of times if your goalie's athletic, like Cage Monster there, um, that you're going to outrun your teammates. And now we really have to take that attitude that's not a goalie anymore. That's a midi, and it's a midi who can't score. So whatever. So, like, what do we do in that situation? Well, we get the ball down the field, and we've got to get our attack moving in a certain way so that she has an outlet, right? And those players have to be taught how to get open. Like in the boys' game, this drives me nuts. Like in the boys' game, everybody understands that concept, like of the V cut, where you like drive your defensive player towards the cage or towards wherever, and then you cut out, and that takes some timing, right? It's like, okay, I see you coming down the field with a ball, and I see you're about to get checked or double teamed or quadruple teamed, and you see me, and so now I've got to drive my player off me, and you've got to feel confident enough to make me a pass in tight quarters, and I've got to have the courage to catch it, right? But if we don't do that in practice at all, how the hell do you expect that to happen in a game? And most coaches expect it to just be all of a sudden happen miraculously in a game. And this happens at the highest levels, right? Of high school lacrosse, even in collegiate lacrosse. Okay. Um, um, okay. Pat Francis, I see you. Let's talk about this one. This is great. She ends up being the shot dummy, taking shots for the offense, defense drills, and don't work on clears ever until it's game time. That sucks, Patrick. Like, that really sucks. I hope your coach sees this and hears me saying that sucks. Unless you're the coach, Patrick. Right? Right. That's one of those sayings, like, you're self-employed. The good news is you're self-employed. The bad news is your boss is an ass. And that's you. Okay. Um, all right, David writes, as a side note, what you didn't see in my video was my son making a bad clearing pass after save. Well, it's a highlight video, so don't put that in there. After save, it being intercepted and Long Island Express scoring. He had to make a high risk outlet pass because his middies were not doing the right thing. Yeah. While all his saves made up for that mistake, they lost the game by only one goal, so it matters. Yeah, and probably, David, people look at your son and go like, "Oh, that was the play that lost the game," which is crap because, what I look at and is, well, what did the team do to set that up? And a lot of coaches, especially in the high school level, club, they're like so busy with like the box game, the substitution game, all that crap. Whereas I just believe this 100% that if coaches just focused on an effective clear, like with the guys on the field, hey, let's go score, right? Let's score right now. Not like, oh, let's just try to get our offensive middies on there. No, like, come on. Like, you can just tear a team apart if you master that transition game. Okay. So yeah, that's the clear, like the if you think about it this way, right? In the boys game, goalie gets the ball, it's a 7-on-6 on the clear. We have an advantage. If we sub somebody off, now we just made it 6-on-6. Well, that was dumb, right? Girls, it's the same. To me, it's the kind of the same thing, but we have a goalie now, and we have slower moving players typically, right? And we have this lack of I can draw that offense, that defensive player to my goalie, and then pass to an open teammate. They don't want to come right away, right? But that's where for a team that's well thought out, there's tons of opportunity for a goalie on the girls' game to press up the field and make something happen, right? And really pick a team apart. Whereas usually it's like coaches go like, just get it to Karen. She's fast and she's got good stick skills, and then hopefully and then it's out of our goalie's hands. Oh, and we all feel better, right? Like, come on. And the moms are on the sideline going, get back in the cage. No. So whenever I've coached a team and I've had that happen, I tell my parents, I'm like, listen, whatever you do, don't ever say that, right? Don't say get back in the cage. You're stifling a massive part of development. Alex writes, my 26 likes to push it up the field when his defensemen aren't catching his clears. That's why playing on a bad team is really good for your goalie. That will serve them well. Also, the other thing, and for Abby, for Bradley, for Abby in that clip, I know a lot of the comments were like, "Oh, the defense needs to work and needs help, and she's left out to dry." Yeah, but there's that one pass she makes that's short, and I'm like, "Hey, right? You got to make that pass so good it hits them in the stick." Right? And so we always got to be careful of those trade-offs too, right? So but yeah, like my high school team, my defense were the exception of one. They were all like football linemen. They had hands like bricks, but what that allowed me to do was develop my outlet passing to my midfielders or to my attack, such that when I got on really good teams and I could make that play, those guys were just ecstatic. They were looking, they were looking to get beat at the top of the box, so I would make a save and then I would hit them up for a fast break, right? But that only happened because my defense wasn't great. Okay. Um, so I promise to not scream that anymore. Who is that? Anne, right? Anne, don't let your inside fear be your outside voice, my little Swedish friend. Okay. All right. You got to just you got to bite that. Um, you got to yeah, you got to swallow that fear. All right. Dads are guilty too, right? Dads are guilty too. When dads yell, it's a fast break and they yell, "Get on him." It's like, listen, okay, the second you bark that from the sideline, you've now probably just triggered a slide with the wrong timing, right? Because that defender who's not your son, um, just thinks go. Well, whereas there's some real uh nuances on fast break defenses for both the boys and the girls, and a lot of that is lost. One, because it's not taught properly, but secondly, because of some overzealous parent who's just trying to do the right thing and trying to cheer for their team and just go, get on him, get on him, right? That sort of stuff. So I'm always on Bradley, I'm always on fire. But listen, I love your daughter. Okay. So with all due respect, like I love your daughter, but let's I want those opportunities. The other thing, and Bradley, I'll share this now because I'll send you a video later. But one of the things that happens, for a lot of you guys that have good goalies, and your goalies have been asked to play up, and they've played with good teams, and then they come, for lack of a better term, down to a team, and that team may have some players that haven't really played much. Their training age is real low. Their stick skills aren't great, and the idea that is incorrect in my opinion is when the goalie or the parents think like, oh geez, my goalie would be better if they were just with a better team. And I'm like, no, you want to be looking forward to these opportunities playing with bad teams. Because yeah, you've got like, two defenders or two people in the defensive half of the field who know what the hell they're doing, and you got four other kids that are just trying to figure it out. Um, I remember back in like 2016, I had this really cool. I think I did a blog post on it. I think it's on my website. It's about China goalies, like because it was a goalie from China. Couldn't see my videos online because they were blocked for propaganda reasons, I guess. But he could hear my podcast, and we were talking about this idea of a goalie being uh, of learning to thrive in a bad situation. And I think that's a really good skill to have, because really at the end of the day, where is your goalie going to develop the best skill? It's when they're usually around players that aren't great, because everybody thinks like, oh well, they've got to learn how to develop these the ability to pass better players. uh, yeah, but like if you're heading up the field, like let's say you're the dad and you've never played lacrosse and you're subbing in on our team and you don't know what the hell you're doing and you run up the sideline on a clear. Well, if I hit you in the back of the head with a pass, I'm like, yes, right? That's my A plus, right? In fact, you dropped it, that's on you. But the idea is that I really want you guys to embrace your goalie being on bad teams because they're going to get the most development out of it. Okay. Um, it's that's why when people post from they on the weekend that hey, their goalie, our team went 4-0 and my goalie had two goals in the whole weekend. I'm like, that was a waste of money. That was a waste of money. All right. So Patrick Francis writes the $1 million question: why for most clubs or teams is so little invested in the goalies when they have such an important role? Oh, Patrick, how much time we have left? Oh, it's okay. Um, You know, I've said, Patrick, this might be the first time you're hearing me say this, but I just believe 100% that next to football, lacrosse is probably the most complicated sport to teach as a team. So, as a coach, if I have like, even if I have one assistant who may have played some collegiate lacrosse at some point, doesn't mean they know how to teach lacrosse, right? And so, um, and so what ends up happening is that coaches, they only have so much bandwidth. And literally, it's like spinning plates. And the goalie position in all sports, ice hockey, soccer, it's the same thing. If you go into, and I encourage you guys, go on Facebook and sign up for other groups, other goalie groups, and hear the conversation there. And you'll find the same conversation happens. But the problem with lacrosse, more so than in soccer or ice hockey, um, or even handball, which is primarily a European sport, um, there is less. There's not a well-defined, consistent program of coaching goalies. That's why you have someone like me who's been around this for like 25 years, and I work really hard at this. And that's why when I hear from a parent, they're like, "Oh yeah, my son's working with this, college goalie. He's back," and I'm like, "Ugh, I hope it goes well, right?" But the idea is that just coaches just don't see the goalie as that significant cog in the wheel. And in sports like ice hockey, they aren't a significant cog in the wheel, right? The goalies aren't taught to, they're taught to clear the puck occasionally, but for the most part, what happens to a goalie? Well, they catch the puck, they tie it up, and they get a face off. In soccer, if your team is taught to build it out from the back, then your goalie's going to roll that ball, make a save, and then roll it to a defender, and they're going to build it up on the wing, or they're going to boot it long. There's not a lot of history. There's not a lot of science to that. Now, sometimes in lacrosse, I think some teams would be better off if the goalie made the save and in 4 seconds, their team tried to flood as many people to like one side of the field and the goalie just cheaped it long. Right. So I think some teams would get further off by doing that. And then your goalie, all they're trying to learn is how to throw the ball long. Um, But Patrick, it's the age. It's the $1,000,000 question. It's the same question that's been around since I was a goalie way back in like the 1800s. All right, so just keep that in mind. All right, guys, thanks for watching and thanks for listening wherever you are. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you like this, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. When you're ready, head on over to lacrossegoalieuniversity.com/coaching so I can work with you and your goalie. And while you're at it, check out athletespecific.com to learn more about mental performance and high performance. You may not know this, but I work with athletes in a variety of sports. Lacrosse is my love, but man, I love athletes and the families who support them. So head on over to athletespecific.com and check it out. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.